Hi, this is Marlene Dodge, and this is my EDL 856 Module 11 case study, a new role for parents organization. Section 1, the summary and the facts. So parents have done away with the PTO and formed a new parent organization. They're unsatisfied about the level of the input from parents and decisions made across the board in all aspects of the school. Without including the principal, they've come up with committees that reach into all areas of a school. And those include areas such as discipline, teacher performance, curriculum, and even school evaluation. So who's involved in this? The principal, he's now very much involved and up to his neck in how to handle the parent group. The superintendent will need to be informed and will most likely weigh in on his thoughts as well as the Board of Education. Teachers will become involved with this process, especially because of the legal implications that it will incite from teacher contract negotiations and the unions. Parents are involved directly, but also the parents that are indirectly involved by possibly not being represented by this new group. Students may end up with positive or negative consequences depending on how this is handled. Unhappy teachers may not provide the most effective environment for students. And the school site curriculum committee would also probably be involved, given the fact that this new parent group wants to have input on curriculum development in the school. So the legal and ethical issues, as far as has anyone been harmed by the action or decision of another, and if so, in what way? Well, the trust between the parent group and the principal has been harmed by the manner in which the parent organization has gone behind his back to organize the group and committees. Teachers would most likely be outraged at the demands being made by parents that would ultimately affect them in all areas of their job. Negotiated contracts have already been established, and any additional time that teachers would be expected to be in school would be a violation. FERPA and IDEA confidentiality problems may come into play when giving the parents the ability to evaluate and collect data from a school. Confidentiality would need to be maintained at all times for students that have an IEP. When policies are developed, all groups must be represented and considered in order to avoid discrimination and the possibility of an Office of Civil Rights violation. No laws or contracts have been breached as of yet, but if they move forward as the parent group wants, there would definitely be legal problems. So, summing this up in one sentence, what is happening? Parents did not feel as if they had enough influence through the PTA and formed a new teacher organization with numerous committees without consulting with the principal. So, Section 4, the facts, the people that are involved in this, there's the new president of the organization. He's a very young lawyer and wants more influence over decisions in the school. I almost have to question, did the organization elect him because they felt he could intimidate the principal into meeting their demands due to his title as an attorney? What parents and demographics make up the remainder of the organization? How have they included all groups into this new organization? The principal needs to decide how to handle the parent group without alienating them. He wants to improve communication with parent organization and allow them a voice, but he ultimately wants decisions to be made by himself because he seemed to be blindsided by this group. It brings the question of how long he's been the principal and how well he truly knows his community. So another topic would be, what are the negotiated teacher agreements and the school and district agreements, because those will come into play when teachers are being asked to work extra nights or work extra time. Even if it is to benefit students, there is always the struggle between negotiated agreements. As far as the place and program, there was not information that indicated what level the school was. If it was a high school, elementary, middle school. In the case of it being in a high school, involvement may look very different from parents than if it were in an elementary school or middle school. So we don't know, we also don't know if this is a small town or an urban school district, nor do we know what the population size is of this school. The only thing we know about the program is that the principal felt that the PTA had been effective and involved in providing sufficient support of the school. And he finds out unexpectedly that parents do not feel this way and have created their new parent organization. So as far as Section 5, reviewing and prioritizing the information, could the conflict, the situation, or the decision be damaging to stakeholders or to the community? The principal absolutely loses trust in the transparency of communication between this former parent organization and the new parent organization. Teachers, again, they will most likely become outraged by this kind of overreach by parents. I think oftentimes teachers feel like they are the last people that are consulted and that everybody else's needs come before theirs. So this will probably create quite the conflict with teachers. Depending on the way in which the principal makes a decision, could also damage relations between teachers and the principal. So the principal ultimately takes responsibility for any decisions that are made. So in the case that he does give parents more outreach, he risks them overstepping in ways that violate laws or violate teacher contracts, and that'll ultimately fall back on him and cause him to, it could even be so severe that it causes him to lose his job as principal. The school site curriculum committee may feel invalidated. I can think of a lot of teachers that would feel as if parents were second guessing their knowledge in how to create curriculum in a school and thinking that parents who may not have an education degree would somehow be better suited at coming up with curriculum for a school. I think there's ways that could be worked out with still allowing teachers to come up with curriculum, but it definitely would be conflicting to have parents weigh in on that a whole lot. Parents could become upset in all of this. It sounds like they already were dissatisfied, depending on which way the principal handles the situation. Parents could further become upset and feel disconnected from the school. Contracts and confidentiality also could be breached. I talked about that a little bit on the last slide about the fact that IDEA and FERPA needs to be maintained when you're gathering information for parents to collect. When individuals and groups have an important stake in the outcome, the principal, he must make a sound decision. Future communication with parents is needed. Teachers must have contracts respected. Evaluations must remain fair. That's one of the things that I thought was really interesting, that parents wanted to weigh in on the evaluation process for teachers. That could get incredibly sticky and harbor a lot of discontent within a school. Evaluations, so they must remain fair. Curriculum and development needs professional oversight. Again, a lot of times I think teachers are the best resource for developing curriculum, and where parents may be able to weigh in some areas. I think there's creative areas where teachers can incorporate parents into curriculum development. Have all the relevant stakeholders been consulted? The superintendent definitely needs to be consulted because ultimately this is affecting one of the principals in his district. And the decisions that the principal makes will also reflect on that. Superintendent, the principal, we spoke about the dilemma that he's trying to figure out as far as how to still keep lines of communication open with parents and keep relations good with parents and have them feel involved and like they are contributing members in the school community, but he still needs to be included in meetings by this parent organization and not excluded in the manner in which he was. The parent organization, they're going to need to improve their lines of communication with the school. And also the Board of Education is going to have to be contacted in this because they do weigh in a lot of policy. And if parents are talking about making policy, that's going to affect the Board of Education. So as far as can I learn more about the situation, I thought there was an awful lot more that needed to be learned about this situation. For instance, the principal. How long has the principal been in the district, and how well does he know his community? I think this was a really interesting thought as to why they would have gone behind his back, why they would not have included him in the concerns that they had prior to having a meeting where they develop all these things without him. Who are the members of the new organization? Is there a diverse representation of parents? I think more and more that becomes very important, that parent organizations are represented across the board with all demographics. And then why do they feel they need the overreach? What was going on with the school prior to them creating this new committee? Was the school performing poorly? Was there that much dissatisfaction in the community with the school? So I think those are some of the questions that needed to be answered. As far as what are the community demographics, we didn't know that. The negotiated contracts must be followed or teachers will involve the unions. So figuring out what the negotiating teacher contracts were. Does the school have a site curriculum committee? I'm assuming that they did. And then as far as do I know enough to make a decision on this, I do think there was enough information that was given to make a decision in the case. I do think it's important to know more about the demographics, and ultimately the need for better and more effective communication is obviously needed. So as far as Section 6, options and possible consequences. So option 1, that's our typical do nothing, take no action. Consequences of that, the principal still makes the decisions. He doesn't really bother with that parent group. The parent group becomes alienated and community relations with the school could suffer. Option 2, set up a meeting, another one that includes a school board member, superintendent, teacher, and a teacher to discuss possible changes to parent committees with this new committee that was set up. I think a meeting of all the minds would be a really important choice in moving forward in this situation. Some of those consequences, the parent group may not want to negotiate. They may feel that their demands were warranted and that a principal should just agree with them. They may feel intimidated that upper levels of administration are involved in teacher contracts are a factor. And so I think sometimes parents think students and which students and the effectiveness of school should be number one. But at the same time, teachers do have protections and they need those. And so contracts do need to be taken seriously for teachers. Option 3, allow for the parent group to have the committees and proceed as they would like. Consequences of that, you would definitely have upset teachers and faculty. Principal could lose his job if parents overstep. Teacher contracts would be violated and confidentiality could be breached within the school. So as far as evaluating my options, okay, so again in the do nothing category, the principal can ignore the parent group demands. It's going to limit liability for the principal. It eliminates conflicts with teachers, and it keeps things at a status quo, which the principal thought was going pretty well. As far as the cons, Communication with parents and community is damaged. Parents may not participate or put effort forth. The principal will have a negative reputation. In this second option, set up a meeting that includes an invitation for a school board member, superintendent, teacher to discuss possible changes to the committees. The pros: compromise may be met more easily with representatives from all areas. Positive ideas for parents can be presented. So you have more people to pull from to be able to help direct their needs and their wants into a direction that would be effective for everybody. Legal challenges could be discussed. I think it would be really important for parents to understand why some of that overreach could cause them a great deal of trouble, more than what they need. And then hopefully one of the pros would be, at the end of all the conversation, would be satisfied parents. The cons of this one: parents may feel like it's an intimidation process. When you start asking parents to come to meetings and you have people from upper level positions at those meetings, I think a lot of times parents realize that you're almost looking for somebody else to tell them why they can't do what they're doing, and it's somebody of a higher power. And I think that becomes very intimidating sometimes for parents. The parent committee may not be representative of all groups. I think that's a huge problem in this, but again, it was one of the factors that we didn't know what the rest of the parent committee looked like. Did they represent all demographics, or was it by giving the president of the committee as an attorney, he's well off, he's probably a very influential person in the community, and he does not necessarily represent families that are at risk or parents that do not speak English. And so that's an issue in itself. And then results may not be made for both sides. So regardless of having a meeting, both sides may still be unsatisfied with the conversation. And then the last one: allow for the parent group to have the committees and proceed as they would like. Pros of that: parents are happy, yay. It's always nice to not have parents griping at schools. However, not always the best option. Participation for schools and community will increase. Parents will feel that they are valued members of the school, which is very important to have parents feeling that way. Cons of this: the principal will have less power over critical decisions, and those are decisions that he should have the power to make. Parents are not trained educators. Teachers will be alienated. Negotiated contracts will be violated. Huge con again. And then tensions between teachers and parents may increase, which could negatively affect children and the students that they teach. And then again, confidentiality breaches are a concern because they haven't been trained and they don't understand the laws that cover confidentiality. As far as choosing the best option, without a doubt, option 2, set up a meeting with all the important stakeholders and try and come up with possible changes to the parent committee's plan. In reflecting about this, that was without a doubt the best option. Communication must be developed, and it needs to be positive communication with parents, and both sides listening to one another. Parents need to have a voice and feel valued. All diverse populations need to be represented, and the principal must draw the line with items that violate negotiated teacher contracts or confidentiality. Where building relationships with teachers is incredibly important, there is still a line that a principal needs to draw to show where decisions should be within his realm and not up to parents to make. As far as laying out my plan, I think they need to relay the proposal to parent organizations about the meeting. and make sure that they understand it's supposed to be a meeting to communicate their concerns, to communicate why they felt the desire to have things the way they did, and to let them know that there are some changes that need to be made, but compromise can be made. Send out community surveys to collect data about areas of concern. I think it would be really important prior to this meeting to send out community surveys to maybe find out if there is some major concern about the schools and the district. And then also, I think it would be important to send out surveys following this meeting about any other concerns that were brought up through the meeting. Communicate and collaborate with teachers, the superintendent, board of education as to the areas of increased participation. Figure out ways that you can involve parents in creative ways to help increase participation with curriculum and areas that they were concerned with. So what may happen and how could it be managed? Parents may feel like this is not enough. Some parents and some people are just never satisfied. So this might not be enough for some people, but I think parents need to be assured that even if they are unsatisfied with the initial result of the meeting, that the process is something that can evolve, and communication is going to drive that. Teachers may feel like there's overreach from parents still, and so develop teacher teams that cultivate collaboration rather than division by inclusion of some parent representatives on some of these committees. Assure teachers that their contracts will not be violated. I think that is extremely important, that any decisions would still follow the rules of their contracts. Present other ideas that could help the students in the district through greater parent community involvement. Parents may feel this is to detract from their proposal, but you need to establish a purpose for why you are suggesting something. I think one of the things that could be greatly increased in schools is having parents come in as representatives of businesses and the jobs and careers that they have chosen, whether it's through a college pathway or a vocational route. I think involving parents in that way and having them come into the school and become part of the curriculum is one of the things that schools can do to increase that parent participation and let them see exactly what is going on in schools. Future lines of communication must improve. Parent-teacher conferences, Google surveys, two-way conversations. That's something throughout this entire class that we've been talking about, how important two-way communication has become, and even more so through this COVID-19. We've seen how extremely important and crucial two-way communication has become. And then what might you do next if the chosen plan of action doesn't work? Hopefully this chosen plan of action would work. I think with the right kind of level of communication and compromise and persistence, I think that this plan would work. So I think you would just continue to keep communication lines open with parents and this parent group, cultivate diverse relationships through continual two-way communication, increase social media as a way to allow community members a better look at the curriculum being implemented. I think that posting pictures, posting results and what's going on in a school for everyone in a community to see is eye-opening to communities and gives them that insider look as to what's happening in their schools. And then again, just be persistent. Eventually, lines of communication should improve. And it's something that every school district has to figure out how to make work, because ultimately parent groups and community members are such a vital part of a school district, and they contribute so greatly to schools that their voices do need to be heard. However, the principal would need to continue to balance their influence in decisions that are made within the school with following guidelines set forth by, again, teacher contracts, as well as laws that could possibly be violated with an overreach by parents. So this is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much.